We are back for the second part of our club preview series. Today we're going through Essendon, Fremantle, Gold Coast, and Geelong.
Come on!
Hello and welcome back to Off the Mark, an AFL fantasy podcast. I'm Mason.
And I'm Casey, and it's great to be here for part two of what's going to be a little bit of a longer series now that we couldn't fit all three teams in the one. But
Yeah, apologies for saying at the start of last episode that we were going to do 6 teams in our 3-part series. It'll now be 4 teams in God knows how many parts because, we're giving you the best information.
Exactly right.
Aren't we?
We are indeed.
Well, I guess let's save as much time as possible and get straight into it. I've got the Essendon Bombers up first. Actually, before we do that, we should say Fantasy did open this week, which is nice. So we can actually have a play around with our teams. We won't go through too much, but just out of interest, of the players we talked about from teams last week, how many of you now actually picked in your side, if you have one yet?
Yeah, right. So what teams? That was Crows, Lions, Carlton, and Collingwood. If I look at my back line, I currently, as it stands, I've gone Nick Newman over Kitty Coleman, just because
Me too.
I think he's better. And then I think that's kind of... I got Jordan Dawson as my M1, as it stands.
Nice.
Jagger Smith is in there. Who else do I have? It's kind of it. I think for Collingwood, I got no one. Carlton just had Nick Newman. Oh, Sid Draper's in my forward line. And none of the rookies other than Sid Draper. I mean, Jagger Smith, of course. But yeah, I think that's the only ones. I got no Lions, and I've only got the one blue. Just going to try steer clear of the bye players if I can. But
yeah, fair enough.
How it stands for me. What about yourself?
Well, I realised that I did a team last night, but I didn't save it. So I already have made 2 teams, so this is my first team. But from memory, I did have Nick Newman in the back line as well. I've got Sam Walsh in the midfield and Jagger Smith, so I feel like I'm getting a bit heavy with these Carlton players. And I had Liam Reedy in the forward line. I'm going to have to cut that down, but I'm just for structure-wise, I'm keeping it there. I floated with Sam Berry in my midfield for a bit. I know I talked him up last episode, but I didn't end up going with him. I think I'm picking Cam McKenzie over him, actually, with the Will Day injury, Warple missing. We'll talk about him when we get to Hawks. Sid Draper, on my bench there as well. And I think that's about it. I did have the Collingwood rookie that you mentioned as well.
Oh, yeah, Sam.
Whatever his name was.
Swanning, yep, something like that.
Yeah, yes, I did have him as well. And Sam Draper, obviously, for the Lions. And I think that's it. Yeah.
I like it.
That's it. So, but I do have some guys that we are going to talk about today. And I actually, believe it or not, I have a lot of Bombers.
Okay.
I'm quite a big fan of them for this year, so let's get into it. Let's look at what they did with their CBAs last year. So Zach Merritt was the main guy last year with 379, but I don't know if that changes. So the last year of his contract this year, 2026, he was publicly wanting to leave last year, so he probably goes at the end of the year, you'd think. I don't see a world where they, can keep him there post this year. So do Essendon just give his CBAs to someone else? Do they keep him in there? Are they going to want to, try a young guy? I don't know. Sam Durham, who had 305, was second behind him. He'll keep a similar amount, maybe a slight uptick if Merritt does lose some. Will Setterfield next at 252, and I did my research before the game dropped, but I couldn't actually find a price from him because they delisted him and then re-signed him after Nick Martin got injured. So
yeah, right.
It'll be really interesting to see what they do with their CBAs with him, because you would think that if they've let him go and now they're going to bring him back in, they didn't really see him as part of their plans anyways. So
that's fair.
That seems like a lot of his CBAs will go, maybe. Jai Caldwell was then in there next with 207. He's obviously going to have an uptick because he was injured for a lot of last year. Dylan Shield was then next at 153, and he's gone, retired or delisted or something, so he'll leave 153 CBAs. So overall, there's a fair few to go around. So, who's up next? Well, it's Darcy Parish, who will definitely have more if he can stay fit. I'm pretty big on him. Elijah Sardis could get some, but we've kind of been waiting for him for a couple of years now, I feel like, and nothing's happened. Archie Perkins actually had 108 CBAs, the seventh most, so maybe a few more for him. But a big one that I'm interested in is actually Andy McGrath. So he's a 786k defender. He's kind of just been a bit mid for the longest time, or at least as long as I can remember. But 128 CBAs last year, so sixth behind Shield and ahead of Archie Perkins. But he's now the captain, which I feel like is a pretty big thing. So he's taken Merritt's captaincy. Had the CBAs near the end of the year, I think. I don't know. I feel something about him in the midfield that screams like, Merritt's going to go out, play a bit half forward, play a bit of wing, and Andy McGrath comes in as the captain to, not so much lead them because they do have Caldwell, Durham, these other guys that are much better, but he's a experienced head in there, I guess. So that's it for the CBAs. To the kick-ins, it was Mason Redmond with 100 kick-ins. Jordan Ridley was next with 31, so it's just, Redmond will keep taking. And I was actually surprised that Nick Martin didn't take as many. I know he kind of played a bit more of a wing role, but I swear I could have seen him floating down there for some. And I didn't write down if he had any.
Certainly felt like he was there.
Check. Yeah, so he had 8 kick-ins across the year in 4 different games. So
wow.
Oh, he had 4 kick-ins in the Carlton game, so that's probably where I remember it from. But
yeah,
there you go. So yeah, Redmond will continue that. I don't see anything there for any scores or anything. The right contest. So this is a really interesting thing for Essendon as well. So Todd Goldstein was obviously the main guy last year. 332 CBAs he had. Peter Wright was next with 79 CBAs. Sam Draper 74. Nick Bryan 67, and Vigo Vicentini with 41. So Goldstein was just the guy. But he's retired. So he's not there anymore. Sam Draper's also left, who had a bit injury struck last year. So my big question is with Nick Bryan, who's a 614k ruck. Now he's injured at the moment. I don't think he'll play round 1. Or are they playing opening round?
Bombers.
No, I don't think he's going to be fit for the first couple of games because he did his ACL in gather round last year, I think, so round 5. So he's still kind of maybe, I think they're being a bit conservative with him, but he looks like he'll be their main ruckman for, the year once he gets fit. So he averaged 73.3 in the 3 full games that he played last year, but they were all against hard ruck matchups in Hawthorn, Adelaide and Port, who were probably 3 of the toughest last year. Like I said, I see him playing number 1 ruck when he's fit. Probably second to Peter Wright, who I think will keep doing what he's been doing. I know he hasn't been their main key forward for most of the year, but I think that they will start to play him there, especially with 5 on the bench now. Vigo Vicentini, who's a 395k ruck, could also be in the side. Definitely will start there with Bryan being injured. But I wouldn't pick him unless Bryan is, announced that he's going to be out for a while or gets another injury where he's out long term. I just don't see that being a great pick. I mean, even it's just a bit too expensive for the bench as well, maybe. I mean, it's around that Liam Reedy price, who I think is going to actually play all year, even if he's not number 1 ruck. So, I mean, if we get that kind of confirmation, then maybe you could launch. But, yeah, Lockie Blackiston as well, who was a rookie last year, could also get some ruck time, so I'll watch on that. I think, in conclusion, I'm a bit more in favour of just staying away from them. It just seems like a confusing scenario situation where I don't really want to touch any of them. I don't think you're going to miss much if you don't. There could be some value, but I think it's safer to just not go there.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Onto the ins and outs. So they didn't have too many. Obviously, a few experienced outs. In they had Jacob Farrow, who was pick 10 for them. So he looks to be one of the more ready-made defenders from this year's draft. I wouldn't be surprised if he plays early. And Essendon rookies, especially in the defense, have done us well in the past as well. So last year we had Zach Reed, who averaged 75. Jackson Pryor averaged 62. Angus Clark averaged 62. Zach Johnson even averaged 50. So I'm pretty keen on him. I actually do have him in my side sitting on my defender bench at the moment. He is 314k though, so a bit more of that expensive type. Max, oh God, I'm going to absolutely fudge his last name. Condagianis. I think I've said that right. He probably won't play, I don't think. 230k defender. Braden Fiorini came in. He's a 900k mid, so he came from the Gold Coast. He should line up on a wing from the Bombers alongside Xavier Dersner. I don't mind him with this Nick Martin injury. I think he's almost the perfect type of player to take over from that role if they want to just give a straight swap to someone who obviously won't be able to do it as well because Nick Martin's Nick Martin. But if they're looking to just give a straight swap, I think that could work for them. So he's probably priced at where he'll score, though, I think. So probably wouldn't be wanting to go there. He would be nice if he was a forward. But yeah, he's not, unfortunately. Dyson Sharp, a 302k mid. He is, where is he? He's taking a pick 13. I think he could see some love at the selection table, so just a watch on that. Sullivan Roby, who was pick 9. He's a 318k mid forward, and Hussein El Akar, a 230k forward. I think maybe they could contest for a small forward spot. They did. Who did they lose that was a small forward? Maybe they didn't lose anyone, Bombers. Or someone's injured or something. I remember seeing something. Anyway,
fair enough.
Yeah, so they could contest for a small forward spot. And then the last guy there was Cillian Borg, who's a Category B rookie who, again, I couldn't find his price on anything before the game opened, so I would assume he's a 230k something, so I haven't heard anything about him, so I wouldn't worry. But onto the outs, which are more for us to worry about. So Ben Hobbs is the biggest one, actually, delisted. 18 games he played last year. I didn't know it was that many. So he leaves a wing spot up for grabs. That's more for Fiorini, I guess. He played a lot in the front half of the ground when he was, so he was more of a forward pushing wingman. So yeah, Fiorini takes his game time. Nick Martin obviously done his ACL. Fiorini takes his game time as well. Some others will probably spill out because it's a bit of work for Fiorini to take both of them. But so Nick Martin played 16 games last year. I could also see a world where the Bombers want to play Merritt around the ground, possibly more. I don't really know if he has a huge tank. I don't think I've ever thought of him as a guy with a big tank, but I feel like you could do it and he'll be fine. There's a lot of narratives around him going out of the midfield, and I feel like this is the perfect time for them to go, look, we've lost some experience there. Can you just go and fill this role for us? We know you're not going to be here next year. This is just what we want you to do. Todd Goldstein obviously leaves the ruck behind, 16 games. He was delisted. Dylan Shield leaves some mid-minutes. He was delisted at 14 games. Jaden Laverde was delisted, so he leaves some minutes behind as a mid or tall defender. So maybe for that, Farrow as a defender rookie. He played 14 games. And then Leman Luau, Jai Menzie, Alan Davey Jr. and Oscar Smart all probably wouldn't be playing for Essendon if they had a fully fit list. So I don't really expect their departures to change much within the team, I don't think. So that's kind of the recap of what happened last year and some of the changes. So let's look at some players. Top of the list, we have Jai Caldwell, who averaged 103. He's priced at 1.08 million. I'm putting him in the watch category, so I think he'll be a good pick, but I think he's a bit high for what I'd pay for him, especially considering he missed round 4 to 8 and rounds 18 to 24 last year. So I can see him averaging around 100 to 105 again, for sure. But I think he needs those CBAs. So the 3 games he got under 60% CBAs, he scored 72, 57, and 79. But then his lowest score for the year after that, so those are his 3 lowest, 4th lowest was 97, and his highest was 146. So, I mean, if he's getting those CBAs, he probably is a bit of value, but I just wonder with all the stuff going on, the Setterfield delisting, Shield going out, is Merritt going to play in there? Parrish is back. There's just a lot of what ifs, and I'm probably looking to other guys priced around that figure. But I could see wanting to have him in there, especially, and I didn't even mention this. No, we kind of did. No early buy. So a lot of these players are instantly more attractive to everyone.
For sure.
Do you have any thoughts on Jai Caldwell? I feel like I'm a bit of a downer on him, but
No, I don't know. I reckon he called it well. I think he's priced where he is, and I think you kind of summed it up. Like, I don't have too much excitement for him at all, but it's like if he has a good preseason, it's an all right price range. It's not crazy for a player like himself. I mean, he could potentially be an M1 if he's bringing the house down, but then again, there's other players who are around the same price that I reckon just have more faith in. Because like we don't really think of Caldwell as your M1 kind of thing. Like he's priced at what is it?
No,
1,087,000 and
103.
You want the big names kind of thing, and whether that's just like mental or whether it's like fantasy relevant as well. But he just doesn't strike me because he started the year at like 700, 800k last year. Like he really just
he was
quietly snuck up in amongst it all and had an outstanding season, but under the radar. So if pre-season he's elite and plays well, there's no reason why we can't pick him in our sides. But yeah, at that price range, I like a few other players around a little bit better than him.
Yeah, I think I'm more of a fan of like a Butters or a Steele around that area. I feel like they have more upside and they have more proven upside. I mean, he'd never averaged over 100 before last year, so we're essentially getting him at his max price ever, which I don't like doing to players, but he's obviously the exception where you can kind of see his development going up. So I feel like it's undeniable that he could have some value, but I guess that kind of contradicts itself. But, you know, I think he could have some value, but just to watch there. So next on the list, Zach Merritt, 102.8 he averaged last year and he's 1.07 million. I'm saying hell no on Zach Merritt. I think it's a hot take because I feel like I've heard a lot of people going, you know, what could he be this year? But I'm really quite like almost putting a ban on myself from picking him. I feel like he's always just been a guy that we're happy to pick, and I feel like we are not gonna do it this year.
Yeah.
So he's averaged 107 plus 7 times in his career and hasn't been priced this low since 2020 and 2018, obviously before COVID. But I'm not really sure on the role now, and I feel like there's plenty of better picks at the top, including Jai Caldwell, who is only 1 point priced above him. Just from all I've read, it's just a bit of a confusing time. And like I said with the rucks, I would rather not go for someone confusing like Zach Merritt. Just because there could be a bit of value there. I feel like that is just not a smart thing to do when I'm trying to pick the players, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure. And Zach Merritt, he had that little bit of half back time, like at the end of the year, and really stuffed up all those who had him. Like he just had some stinky games and just experimented with him when they didn't need to, and he was on the lesser side of the beneficiary for points for when he went down back. And like you said before, where you see Zach Merritt being one of the players to run around a little bit more, less midfield time just doesn't sound good for him at all, fantasy-wise. I mean, sure, for him as an impact player, then yeah, maybe, but I don't see any of them picking Zach Merritt.
But then, I'm only conspiring that Essendon might want to have him fill a bit more of an around-the-ground role. I haven't actually heard any news on that. If they're going to move him out of the midfield, that's what I predict they'll do. We've seen Nick Martin in a side like this who, you know, no offense Essendon fans, but is not the greatest. Lets up a lot of points, but also scores a lot of points. Could we see someone like him benefit from a role outside? Or is he just, you know, he's at his best when he's inside? I mean, we don't really have data on it because he's always been an inside midfielder.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to tell you, but yeah, I feel it's what you'd put it as like a beware kind of thing. Like you've said hell no already. Like I can't see us going there at all.
Yeah. No, not at all. Next on the list, Archie Roberts. So he's a defender at 901k, average 85.9 last year. I think I need to see a bit more from him. So he had a great season, averaging 85.9. Obviously, broke out actually in a highlight for Essendon. Was, you know, about the only thing that was good that was talked about at the club. So I can see them using him as like a main distributor, especially with Nick Martin gone. I'm mentioning him a lot. It's a huge out for them. He was probably their best player last year. So they're really going to have to split up kind of his roles across the ground, across other players. And I see Archie Roberts being the distributor out of, kind of half-back wing as that player. So he had a similar disposal efficiency, which I think is something that they're really going to look for. They want a ball user. He maybe doesn't have the tank that Martin had. But yeah, like I said, around that defensive half, I think that he's the guy to lap up all of that. I could see him averaging probably 90 at best, maybe more in that role, but because we're not sure, I'm not going to go there. I think it's just not enough value, priced at 85. But, you know, if you're looking for defender options around that price, I don't know if I see him going below 85. So maybe it's a safe pick, I guess. And as I said before, the Essendon defenders usually score pretty well. I could see him benefiting from Nick Martin being out possibly.
Well, that's what I was.
As well as Braden Fiorini. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that with the defenders for Essendon, I think I mentioned this in our unreleased preseason episode. I really feel like now that Nick Martin's out, a lot of the Essendon defenders will get like a 5 to 10 point boost from where they averaged last year. That could just be crazy talk, but even they had so much chip to chip, and what's his name? Nick Martin was a massive part of that. Even though he wasn't playing halfback half the time, like he was down there getting footy. I reckon. Maybe not all of them, but like your main ones, like your Roberts, your Redmonds, maybe even a Zach Reed can get a little bit of a points boost.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you'll talk about some of those guys. Fiorini as well.
Yeah, well, see, I'm not too keen on a whole lot of other like those rookies from last year. I feel like are just not interesting to me. I mean, we're not picking Zach Reed now. I think he's priced at 700k or something. It's just a bit
791.
too much. Being a key defender back there. So a lot of those guys kind of actually outperformed what we thought they would as rookies, and I'm just not keen on them now. Zach Reed's priced above Andy McGrath. Tell me which player you'd rather have on your side. He's
Yeah.
priced above Darcy Parish. I just don't see myself going there. But yeah, Archie Roberts and Braden Fiorini, who I bring up now at 900k, price literally the same, but instead he's a midfielder. So last year he had his highest averaging year since 2021. Went up 12 points to average 85.8. It also might come as a surprise, but Essendon scored more fantasy points than Gold Coast last season. I was actually trying to find some statistics to go, Essendon were a shit side, so he's probably going to go down. But they actually scored really well last year. 26 points a game, Essendon outscored Gold Coast, so not too much. But still, it's a stat that we can bring up in the preseason and then never use again. But I think I'd just like to see him put up some impressive scores in the preseason. We know he did it in the VFL last year. He was that VFL demon, scoring 200 a game or whatever he was doing.
Yeah, that's right.
And I've spoken about him numerous times with the fallback from Nick Martin. So, look, I think I just need to see more in terms of I just need to see him. Like I need to watch him in a game, see how Essendon are going to use him before I'm wanting to pick him. Sam Durham as well in the midfield is probably another guy that I want to see a bit more from. So 822k he is averaged 78 last year, which feels a bit low for a main CBA midfielder. But he's just not really a historically high fantasy scorer. But I can see him having an increase this year. So he seems like they're kind of number one midfielder at the moment. If we're accounting for the constantly if we're not accounting for the constantly injured Parrish and Caldwell, I think if we're looking at who's most trustworthy in terms of their availability, Durham would be my number one. Again, if we're taking merit out of the equation as well. So when he got over 60% CBAs last year, he averaged 82.7, so it's only 4 points upside. He builds his scores off lots of kicking, and obviously when his kicking numbers are low, he doesn't score as well. So I don't really know what we need to see in the preseason in terms of that, but those are the stats. I think I need to see more. Although he could present some value. I mean, it is odd that a guy averaging 78.4 is one of the main midfielders in the side. That's a little bit odd to me, but that's what it is. Andy McGrath, though, I think will be a midfielder this year. I haven't gotten much news on it, but I'm confident that it is something that they would do if Merritt is moved out of there. And because Shield and Setterfield are probably not going to play, or Shield's definitely not, but Setterfield probably won't either. So, believe it or not, last year McGrath actually had his worst fantasy year since 2019, his third year in the system. So, in the 4 years between 2021 and 24, he averaged over 80, with a high of 84.2, which he averaged in 2021, and he also averaged the same in 2024. And he's now priced at 74.9, which is what he averaged last year. If he does get midfield time, last year when he played over 70% CBAs, it was actually over 69% CBAs, but I just wanted to include a game for the stat. So when he plays over 69% CBAs, he averaged 96, which is, we're talking about whether he gets the role. He does actually score in it, which is a good thing. My only concern is that this was 5 games at the end of last year that he averaged that, and the midfield was a bit injury hit. So I don't know how much we play into that. I also don't know how much we play into him being the captain of the club. Even if he's just getting some CBAs, I could see him averaging 90, which, being priced at 74, that is well enough upside, especially for a defender. So I think that I'm pretty keen on picking him. No early buy as well. He's just in a nice value price bracket, low 70s, could go up to a 90. I think he could be a good pick.
I like it.
What do you think on that? Do you think he gets
I don't know.
CBAs?
I had him a couple of years ago, or maybe even last year for a little bit of the, and he just was consistent. Nothing good, but nothing. He didn't. His floor isn't low at all, from recollection at least. So, and if he does get the midfield time, then you just pointed out the stat there, averaging 90 or whatever it is. I think there's definitely midfield time up for grabs, whether he can be the one to take it. But there's a couple other blokes coming into the side, like you look at old mate Parrish, who played 3 games. He's going to take a lot of the midfield time.
Yep.
But so it's just
we'll talk about him in a second. But yeah,
a lot of it is just tracking their preseason and seeing where they're playing primarily. if he's stuck in that half back. But if he gets the midfield time, then definitely will pique my interest for sure.
Yeah, so just checking here. So he had no CBAs all year, where he had 2% in round 2, until he had 33% in round 19, where he scored. Oh, what's my game done here? Where he scored 54, 72% where he scored 70, 90% scored a 92, 69% he scored a 101, 88% he scored a 134, 84% he scored an 83, and 44% he scored a 66. So that kind of over 60, over 70 number is really where I think you'd want him to be hitting, which I can honestly see him getting. But it really depends on this next guy, Darcy Parish, who's priced at 759k, averaged 85.3, but is priced at 72.4 with that injury discount. So I think if he's fit, which is a big if because he's never fit, he plays bulk midfield time because there's nowhere else that he can really play. Now the thing is, he averaged in 2022 he averaged 100.3. 2021, he averaged 105.5, and his best year was 2023, where he averaged 106.9. So he's gone over 103 times, which is, he is that type of player. He's not just kind of done it in a good season. I think I've put him in the watch category. The only watch is really if he gets any injury scares, and kind of if he can get back to his best. But if he's playing midfield, I mean, his TOG is going to be low, but I feel like he still scores well above his price stat of 72. I mean, even if he scores 90, it's value. We are now 3 years from his last good season, though, which was 2023. And it was also his last mostly uninterrupted season. He's not really put together a full season since then. So it's a watch. It's not a lock yet. I do have him in my side at the moment. But I think 30 points could be the upside you're getting. That puts him at a 102 average if he gets back to his best. So I'm keen on him, but I just need to... I need for my heart to hear that he's had a good preseason. I need someone to come out and say, yep, Darcy Parish is fit, he's firing, he looks good, he's ready to play in the midfield. And I would put him at the lock of all locks if that came out.
Yeah, I agree.
Next, we've got Nick Bryan. So he's a ruck priced at 614k, 58.5 average, priced at 57.8. So a little bit of an injury discount. Like I said before, I'm not touching the Essendon rucks. But if everything goes right, there is undeniable value here with Nick Bryant. So I find it unlikely, though, he averages over 85. Considering every game he's had over 50% ruck contests, so been the main ruck in the game, in 2024 and 2025, he only averaged 70. His top score in that time was 81. So this is him being the main ruck in the side, top score of 81. It just screams a little bit of a shit player. Like, I don't know if his scoring potential is here. I've seen a lot of people raving about him on, online and all that. I just don't know if I agree personally. So I'm not too hot on him. And then we've got two rookies here, Jacob Farrow and Dyson Sharp. So Farrow's 314k defender mid. I'm locking him in. I'm happy to lock him in on my defender bench. Probably not field yet. He looks to be ready-made. Considering Essendon's injury crisis, he should get plenty of game time because that's probably going to happen again, isn't it? He's 189 centimetres, a left footer, and a good ball user. So I see him being in the side. Dyson Sharp, however, I'm not as hot on. I've put him as a watch. He's 302k mid. He doesn't seem to be as in favour in the side as Farrow, but don't be surprised if he does debut soon. He's a contested ball beast. National Championships, he averaged 11.3 contested possessions, 6 clearances and 5 tackles, and he's 188 centimetres. So I could see them using him in the midfield for some grunt, but I could also possibly see them putting him on the wing and half-back, similar to what someone like a Ruben Jinby at West Coast has done, drafted as a big bullish midfielder, and they kind of just play him for some game time, but they're not quite ready to use him in the midfield yet. He did in his draft year, though, have a lot of comparisons to Ben Hobbs, which I thought was a weird player to compare him to. Just such an obscure kind of B-grade player to, like, I feel like it's kind of offensive. Like, I want to be, he plays like Bontempelli or Zach Merritt or Patrick Cripps. Ben Hobbs, like, okay. So, I mean, Ben Hobbs got delisted. Maybe it's a straight swap. Maybe he just takes his role, which would be great for us in terms of a pick, considering he played 18 games last year. But, yeah, that's the Bombers. So I'm only really locking in Jacob Farrow, and that's it. But I'm pretty hot on Parish and McGrath as well, who I'd be almost happy to lock in.
Impressive. Well, I'm just impressed you managed to talk about the Bombers for half an hour. That's well done.
There's a lot to talk about.
Fair enough. Dude Bowl will be happy with that. Rightio, what are we up to? Frio. Okay. All right, so I'm going to lock back in. My turn. All right, let's just start with last season. They did all right. Nothing too special with the Dockers, especially from a fantasy side. Like their top three was Andy Brayshaw, 101. Luke Jackson was a really good pick for all of us in the forward line. He averaged 94. And then Caleb Sarong with 92. The ins and outs for them coming into their side this year was Mason Cox from the Pies. I hate him, personally. I'm sure you do
What
too.
is that? Why is that? Why have they gone and targeted him? That's the oddest thing I've ever seen.
Who knows, mate? Who knows? And they've also brought in some other guys who I can't name from the rookie draft, but that don't really matter. Judd McVie from Melbourne, who I was hot on in our unreleased apprentice episode, and a couple of other draft picks, none of them who are too important. There was number 25 was Adam Swade or something like that. I will talk about him later as well. I like him for a bit of value down on the bottom end. Going out was James H. retired, Will Brodie. Look out, a couple of weeks' time. I'm looking forward to that podcast.
Wow.
Nat Fyfe retired. Quinton Narkle retired. Liam Reedy went to the Blues, and Michael Walters retired. So nothing too big. I mean, Will Brodie's pretty big. But we'll talk about that later.
That's a pretty big... I don't know how they're going to play, to be honest.
Yeah.
Don't know how you can have a side without him.
Exactly. Hey, they got a bag of chips, though. Anyway, for their CBAs last year, their top three was... Caleb Sarong at 81%, Andy Brayshaw at 77%, and then it was kind of just like Luke Jackson played a bit of mid-time as well as the ruck time. So it's hard to... He's written down 67% CBA attendance, which is... It's hard to distinguish. I couldn't find the stats for how much he was in there as a midfielder and how much he was in there as a ruckman. But the next highest, like, non-Sean Darcy bloke is Hayden Young with 40%. And he only played, like, 10 games or something, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, 9 games for the year. But yeah, everybody but Shai Bolton popped his head in there a little bit. Jagger O'Meara, when he was there, he played a little bit, but not really. So it's really just Sarong, Brayshaw, and maybe a bit of Luke Jackson as a midfielder. So would be interesting to see throughout the year if Hayden Young can get some more CBAs, then he'll certainly be someone on our radar. But at the moment, not yet. But I want to see more from that. But yeah, the Freo midfield could be something we could pay attention to. And if it's not, then Luke Jackson, no one's picking him. No one's already picking him anyway. But yeah, just good to see if someone new pops their head in, like a Nathan O'Driscoll or someone like that who's priced a little bit lower, who maybe gets some midfield time. For the kick-ins, though, it was big Luke Ryan. He took most of them. 135 for the year. And then... Jordan Clark, and then Daylight, and then a couple other people. So it's really just those two taking the kick-ins. Jordan Clark at 67, and Luke Ryan 130. I'll let you smile. I saw that. Luke Ryan at 138, and so that's kind of it. Who's taking the kick-ins for the Dockers? So not too much to talk about there. From a fantasy perspective this year, there's not too many people I'm overly excited about from the Dockers, but their top two blokes in Andy Brayshaw and Caleb Sarong, I think they're going to be, like, they're well up there to be both of them in our side straight away. No early buy, so that's what we want to see. And there's so many other players that have the early buy that we can just pivot to them. And that's what I want to talk about. Andy Brayshaw is priced at $1 million, so 1,060,000, priced at 101. That's what he averaged for the year. I don't see him going much above that, but I can't see him dropping below 100. Even if it's just for the start of the year, he's in all right form, and he's just a workhorse. Gets it done, gets the 1-2s, gets a rare goal here and there. Like, he's an all round really good player. But Caleb Sarong is the one I want to talk about. Priced at 92, $970,000. With all these early buys, we're looking for someone just solid who maybe even starts the season well. So I wanted to just talk about that for a second. Last year, Caleb Sarong started with an 85, then he goes 100, 121, 101. It's a pretty good start to the season. The year before that, he starts with 161, 128, 118. Year before that, starts with 115, 127, 106, 125, 114. I think if we're looking for a bloke that starts the season strong, so we can pivot to one of those blokes who have the early buy that God knows I'm not picking, and hopefully most of you aren't picking either, I reckon Caleb Sarong's the one to go to. Yes, he plays Geelong in their first game. a little bit difficult, but then he plays the D's and the Tigers, and that gets you to round 4, the hard bye, where they then play the Crows. We could probably look to jump off then. But then again, you might not even need to. I really like Sarong. But what are your thoughts on him?
Well, see, that round 1 game against Geelong concerns me slightly because they do love to tag. And I think they have tagged him in the past. Obviously, he had a bit of a down year last year, but I still think he's their main tag target. But Melbourne and Richmond are such juicy matchups there, rounds 2 and 3, where other players that we'll want are going to be on their bye. He's also a captain option. I mean, you read out some of those scores. Particularly, I remember distinctly his opening to 2024. Everyone was talking about him, and no one had really picked him. I mean, he's kind of like really a lot of value priced there under $1 million. If he can get back to his best. So priced at 92, that's crazy.
Like,
I think he could be a good pick, but I think he comes with some risk,
easy.
definitely.
Yeah. I reckon from the start of the season, he averages 105 the start over the first 4 games. He has to.
Oh,
he might.
Yeah, 100%.
He might drop it.
First 4 games, I think he'll average 115.
Yeah, mate, that's what I'm saying, and that's all we really need. Because after that, then all the bye players come, and if we really aren't feeling it with Caleb Sarong, we just jump off to one of those bye players who we all know we want on our sides. Like,
exactly,
we could even go as with any luck if he averages 120 over those first 4 games, he might even pop himself enough that Bailey Smith is in reach or something like that. One of those boys. Like, I think it's the perfect play. And he should be in everyone's team for the start of the year.
And I think planning to get players off their bye is a good strategy because a lot of these guys are going to be pretty unique because people will have traded them off on their buys to not hold them over it or just not pick them at all. So, you think someone like Sam Walsh is going to be so highly owned, but he would be so much more highly owned if he didn't have the buy. So he's more unique than he should be. And that goes for any number of premiums, particularly ones that are a not value over those buy rounds. So yeah, I definitely think that's a strategy, and Caleb Sarong's someone you could do it with.
Yeah. For the Dockers, so that's Brayshaw, that's Sarong. Luke Jackson, he averaged 94, but a lot of that was because he was the solo ruck, because, what's his name, Sean Darcy missed a lot of games. So when Sean Darcy's in the side and fit, he's the number 1 ruck. It's as simple as that. Yes, Luke Jackson backs him up, but I don't know if having... Oh, one sec, sorry. I don't know if having Luke Ryan as a midfielder is sustainable for the season, for the Dockers. I mean, obviously it's got to give or take, see what they do, but I feel like they'll want one of those other younger guys, like not younger guys, but like a Hayden Young, like a Shai Bolton getting in, Nathan O'Driscoll, those boys getting into the CBAs over Luke Jackson and have him as a forward because he is an outstanding forward. Like he won a few games off of his boot, kicking 5, 6 goals last year. Like there's no reason for them to not have him in the forward line. Like him, Tracy, way better than blokes like your Jai Amos, I reckon Luke Jackson is, and a couple other those tall forwards. Yeah. I mean, Paddy Voss is pretty good, but I just feel like, and it only takes one injury for one of their tall forwards to go down for Luke Jackson to spend 5, 6 games in as the tall forward, not getting any midfield time at all. So it's just, we're not picking him, I don't think. Priced at 995k, it's really expensive. Just, I don't think we can. What do you reckon? Solo ruck as well. That's the
how do you see the inclusion of Mason Cox into the list playing into him being that backup ruck? Like, is he strictly, because I've seen some things as though he's still training in the midfield. I don't know if that means they're just kind of playing him there as that being his backup when he's second rucks, but do you think that he ever does, like, do you think he's ever freed of ruck duties? Do you think that Cox jumps him in the kind of, what's it called, ruck line? Like, obviously Darcy's number 1 if he's fit. I mean, I don't even still know if he is. I actually personally think I would just be playing Jackson in there, but it's Darcy, and then have they gone and got Cox essentially so that they can free up Jackson to play midfield and forward?
I don't know, mate. If you want my honest opinion, I don't think Cox is going to get more than 3 games of the year. I just don't think he's fast enough and skilled enough to keep up with the blokes like a Luke Jackson. Like, you're not picking Mason Cox over Luke Jackson. Like, are we serious? Like, come on. But then again, I'm not I'm not choosing the team. I'm not all that sort of stuff. So each to their own. But we've got to see what they do. But I just still think it's too much risk, especially in a ruck position. He is only ruck. That's Luke Jackson's downside. He doesn't have a forward status anymore. He's like exclusively ruck, and the blokes with far more security than that in the ruck line. So we're not picking him. Hayden Young is worth a talk. He priced at 87, averaged 62 last year. A lot of injuries last year, but 916k in the midfield. If he can get that midfield time, I think he's probably too expensive to start in your side. You were saying earlier on today, before the recording, that he's probably a little bit too expensive to have, and I agree. But I think that we could look to get him later on in the year. Just depends how he goes. But then again, what is a preseason podcast without saying we've got to wait and see what happens? So I think he's definitely one to have in your radar.
It's content. You got to have it.
Exactly right. Other than that, there's not too many top enders. Like, that's kind of it. Look down a little bit further at Nathan O'Driscoll. A lot of us had him as that rookie last year. He might not even be a rookie. He was just that priced at 400k. Hang on one second, charge my phone. And I think that if he can keep it up, that'd be funny. If my girlfriend FaceTime missed and my voice recording stopped as well. I'll have to sort that out later. But anyway.
I'll get in the editing room.
Yeah. But I just think that Nathan O'Driscoll has the potential. Like I said, it's a preseason podcast. That's all we're talking about. But he's priced at 675, so I do see some value in that. I see him, especially when he played on the wing as that outside mid. He got a lot of footy in the start of the year, and he's only got a 64 average because he had those 2 injured games. I took those out of his score, and he averaged 83 without them. So he's priced at 64, and without the 2 injured games that he had, he scored 83 just normally throughout last season. There's no reason why he can't do that again. So, but like I said,
that interests me a lot. Then, yeah, wow,
yeah. I want to see proper midfield time. Proper outside mid.
Yeah, well, I think that possibly I don't have like anything where on what Will Brodie played last year, but in my head he's kind of like the halfback winger type, I think. So maybe O'Driscoll has a bit of upside in terms of that position, possibly. I also feel like Freo they don't really have like a winger or an outside player that screams to me as like a lock in their side. O'Driscoll's probably the best one. Also, just a little funny thing, I went on there yesterday within the first whatever it was of fantasy dropping, and there's a rookie who's Nicholas Driscoll, not Nathan O'Driscoll, and he was like 20% picked, and he was a rookie price, and I'm just wondering if people are picking him because they think he's Nathan O'Driscoll, and they've seen, Nathan O'Driscoll, 230k, fuck, I'm going to pick him. So just check your O'Driscoll in your side and make sure it's the right one, because I reckon a lot of people have done that. But you've definitely sold me on O'Driscoll. I'm actually quite keen on him now. I'll have to add him to my side.
Looking back, there's no one else I like. Mason Cox sucks. I'm not picking him. Who did I have down? There we go. Adam Swede. He's a straight mid. Rookie pick 24, priced at 254k because he was in the top 30. I like him. I like him a lot. I had his Waffle stats up before. He was averaging, sorry, not Waffle, his whatever club he was playing at before. He was averaging 23 disposals coming in from the half forward flank and the midfield. So can play a little bit of forward. So what that means for his for his fantasy scoring, I'm not sure, but I like him. He's hang on, well, I have the rest of my stats for him. Yeah.
What position is he, sorry?
I think, here we go. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, he's a midfield for fantasy, and he averaged 27 disposals at 97 fantasy points a game. So, in the under 18 championships, that's good competition, and I think that he certainly showed himself. So, whether he can break into the Freo side for round one, if he can, he'll be on my bench in the midfield. So, that's just one to look out for, and that's kind of the Dockers. That's kind of all I had. So, I I think, yeah. So what we got Swede as a midfielder, or Swade as a midfielder, starting either Caleb Sarong, you got to, I reckon, in my opinion. Andy Brayshaw is one if you'd like, and then Nathan O'Driscoll on the watch list, as well as Hayden Young. So that's
There
the
you
Dockers.
go. You've actually... I was really kind of not keen on any Dockers, I don't think, despite having the early buy. Because obviously you go through all the early buy teams and you go, right, who do I want from these? Because they don't have a buy. And I just couldn't find anyone at Freo. But you've done the research. You've convinced me on a couple of guys. So my team will be making some changes. Let's move swiftly on to the Gold Coast, who I had. So let's take a quick recap of what they did last year. So their CBAs last year, Noah Anderson was the main guy. Actually, surprisingly above Rao, only by a few, 595 CBAs to Rao's 564. And then behind them was Took Miller, 343. Bailey Humphrey, 242. I think he drops off a little bit this year because they have the one obvious inclusion, which is Christian Petrarca. And I think that he also takes some off Took Miller. I think that probably Took Miller was kind of playing like a mid-forward kind of hybrid last year. I think that Petrarca kind of takes that role or shares it with Took Miller. I don't see Miller out of the side. I still think he's a valued player for them. But I can see him, he's a bit older now, probably taking less of a role. Although I think him and Petrarca are like around the same age. Petrarca's like 32, which always surprises me. I feel like he's younger than he actually is. So yeah, I see Petrarca slipping in there as the third midfielder behind Anderson and Rao. Humphrey, I think, is almost exclusively a small forward probably now, with a few midfield minutes. And then Took Miller, probably that fourth guy in there. Sam Flanders and Braden Fiorini obviously left during the year. But they didn't have 53 and 40 CBAs they had for the whole year. So they don't make up too much of that. So I wouldn't be thinking about that too much. If we go over to their kick-ins, and John Noble was the main guy there with, if my website loads, 113 kick-ins. Will Powell and Joel Jeffrey then had 42, and then it's pretty off from there. So the main one that I wanted to look at here was Dan Rioli, who only had 18, which really surprised me, to John Noble's 113. I'm really looking to see how that dynamic works this year. I know we talked about it last year. And yeah, John Noble, I think, will get the same amount. But there's a lot to look for with kick-ins. There's a lot that I'll talk about later that relies on some scores. As for their ruck contests, obviously, Jared Witts was that guy in there, and he'll continue to do so, although he is getting pretty old, and these ruck rules are probably not going to allow him to do a whole lot more from what he was doing last year, so we're not picking him, definitely. Ethan Reed and Ned Moyle were the next two in line with 296 and 143. Witts had over 2,000 ruck contests, by the way, which is crazy. Played every single game, including their finals. So yeah, I think that, especially with the fifth man on the bench, I can see them kind of resting Witts a bit more, not playing him as much, 60 to 70% game time. And these guys like Reed and Moyle can have a bit more ruck contest, and we'll talk about one of them later. So that's it for last year. Now let's look at their ins and outs. I've already kind of mentioned most of them, and there's not actually really too many. Obviously, that big one in there was Christian Petrarca, so obviously he'll get a midfield role there. They also had, who else did they have in? Hugo Hagen was the other big name in there, who was the trade. I didn't actually put him on my list. I don't think he's super fantasy relevant, despite being priced around 400k. I just don't think I'm a fan of him, especially with kind of, he could not play for a certain amount of time. I'm not a fan of that. Apart from that, they had number 5 draft pick, Dylan Patterson, and the number 2 draft pick, Zeke Euland, who I'll talk about later. So they both come in as highly touted players. Bo Adinsel at number 18 was a draft pick. Kobe Colson at number 46 was a draft pick. Jai Murray, number 17 draft pick. Avery Thomas, number 28 draft pick. Look, this is a fantasy podcast, but my God, for a side that made finals last year, having that many high draft picks is crazy. Anyway, of their players out, Ben Ainsworth traded to Carlton, Tom Berry delisted, Connor Buderick traded to the Bulldogs, Braden Fiorini traded to Essendon, Sam Flanders traded to St Kilda, Lloyd Johnson delisted, Sean Lemons delisted, Malcolm Roses Jr. traded to Sydney, Alex Sexton, our boy, delisted, and David Swallow retired. So they did have a few outs, and to be fair, they did get a few picks in, but they had some quality go out. So there is a fair bit of change in there. But now let's look to the players, and who else to look at but the reigning Brownlow medalist in Matt Rowell. So he's priced at 106 million, averaged 101. I was thinking about putting him in the watch, but I think I need to see more from him. So I feel like he was a bit of a surprise. No one had him in the preseason, I don't think. No one thought he'd average 100. I remember when he was averaging 100 through the year, people were like taking screenshots and being like, oh, if you told me Matt Rowell was a 100 averaging player by this round, and then he actually ended being a 100 averaging player. So good on him. Had a great year. He was just kind of 5 to 10% better in kicks, handballs, marks, tackles, goals, everything. So the hard thing is kind of knowing whether that's him now or whether he just had a really good year. It's his 7th year coming into 2026, so I'm just going to say that that's him now. And if you're going to get him, you're getting him priced at what he'll be or maybe a little bit better, considering he had a Brownlow year. So I'm not a huge fan of that. I need to see him, put up some big scores fantasy-wise or see some kind of role change that leads him to be more fantasy-friendly to be picking him. Noah Anderson's the other big name in there, 99.5 he averaged at 1.04 million. He's a watch, so I think there's upside there. He had his worst kick-to-handball ratio ever last year, 0.96. He averaged in 3 years 103.9, 100.5, and 2 years he averaged those, so both over 100, and his kick handball ratio is 1.19 and 1.59. So that's the main stat that I could see that was the difference this year. He's also going into his 7-year like Raul is. He had his least amount of marks averaged since his debut year in 2020 with 3.7. In those 2 years, he averaged over 100. He had 4.7 and 4.5. So there's small margins here, but I think that with a good opening, with West Coast, Richmond, the bye, and Melbourne up first, I think that you could possibly go there for some value. It just kind of sucks that he has that bye, I guess. Next on the list, what do you think of those two premium mids there? Would you be picking any of them even with the bye?
No, you hit a hammer in the head. You can't pick him with the bye, but I'm definitely looking to target them off the bye, and that's what I'm sticking to for the preseason. I'll kind of leave it at that. You're right with Matt Rowell. I can't see him getting much worse. Where he is where he is. If not, it'd be a little bit better. So I think you hit that the same. Noah Anderson as well. He's priced at 99. I reckon he can go at 102 to 107, like somewhere in between the 105 kind of thing. Like I reckon he can. So that's a little increase. If you're worried about him getting up, then pick him before the bye for sure. But that bye really stuffs you up.
Well, especially with the bye, because we're probably not picking any of these guys with the bye, apart from a few that I'll talk about. But the fact they have West Coast, Richmond, and then the bye, I think who do they play opening round? I don't know, actually. But those two in round 1 and round 2, kind of any player that has a little bit of value loses their value because they're probably going to score really well. Geelong they have in round 0, sorry. So they play Geelong, West Coast, Richmond. That's a good run, especially for Rowell and Anderson. So I think that they probably go up on their bye, and we're probably not going to be wanting to target them unless one of them really has some stinkers. But I don't see that happening. These next two guys, though, are similar roles for them. So Took Miller first up, averaged 91 last year. He's 955. I'm putting him a watch here. You're not picking him now, but if he does pick up forward status, I definitely would be thinking about him. So he played forward as his second position to midfield last year. So watch for that to increase with Petrarca. I don't think that he's much value priced at 91, even if he was a forward. But again, if we were getting him as a 91 guy in the forward line, even paying up for him, I think is worth it. So watch for him. And then the other guy is Christian Petrarca, who I want to talk a lot about. So I'm happy to lock him into F2 or maybe even F1. I've seen some interesting talk with people not picking Sheasel. We'll talk about that when we get to North Melbourne. But in that case, I think you definitely need Petrarca. Even if you are picking Sheasel, I think you need him. I think he expands on 90. I don't see a world where he averages 90 or under this year. Averaged 110, 102, and 106 between 2021 and 23, but just 90 in 2024 and 2025. Averaged 3 less kicks a game and about 1 less mark, so a little bit of room to improve. But the big one was his time on ground. During those years between 21 and 23, he was at 89%, 88%, and 84%. Dropped to 78% in 2024. And then 85% again last year, so a little bit up. But if I can see his TOG back in the high 80s or even up to like 90%, I think that even if it's him resting as forward, I'd rather him do that than sit on the bench because that's where goals come and he's great around the goals. I think it's a super lock if his TOG is right back up there. And at a new club, I don't know what their plans are with him, but I would assume they're wanting him to be that third midfielder behind Rowell and Anderson. So I think he does what Took did for them last year, but better fantasy-wise and football-wise for them. So they're going to be pretty keen on using him. I don't see a world where he doesn't average 100. Maybe that's a big call, but I just don't. again, definitely don't see him going down from 90. And I think even if he does 90, it's still a good pick for the forward line.
Yeah, for sure.
Any thoughts on Petrarca? Have you got him in your side at the moment?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I do. Which goes against my no buy players, but I think it's in my head. It was the same as how we all had Bailey Smith, Jack McRae, and Caleb Daniel in the forward line last year. When Bailey Smith had that buy, but everyone had him, you just kind of had to ride that, especially in a dwindled forward line. There's a few guys around his price range who you could start with over him, like a Cosy Pickett, a little bit more expensive, or players like that. But I've got Petrarca for now. We'll see how much the buy scares me as we go up to. But it's not that round 2. Like, it's the round 3. You've got 2 full rounds. You've got 4 full trades to get rid of him.
Yeah.
If you're still worried about that. But you could just ride it as well. But no, I like him a lot. And I think you're right with the 100 call. I rate that. I reckon I'd say 98 is what I reckon he'll average for the year. But that's up to it as well.
Yeah,
so around there, it's definitely an increase from 90.
I think 100 is probably the max I could see him at. It wouldn't surprise me if he goes above that, but I wouldn't be betting on him going above 100. It's between 90 and 100. So I'm pretty keen on him.
Yeah.
I'm not too keen on anyone else from here, but I'll mention a few names and then some rookies. So Dan Rioli is cheap. Priced at 71, he's 747k. So I've put a watch on him. He presents plenty of value. He had his worst year since 2021. And pretty much every stat was down from those 3 years between 2022 and 24. I'd love to see him get up in the kick-ins like I spoke about before. He's currently behind Powell, Jeffrey, and Hewland. So I don't know why that is. Maybe they're preferring him to play up the ground a bit more. I'm not sure. But I think watch the roll and maybe launch after the bye if we're confident. Hopefully he hasn't lost too much value. But yeah, I'm not too keen on him. Will Powell's another one in that defense, 701k. So he's averaged 74 in 2024 and 82 in 2023, but just 66 in 2025. So just a watch on him. He had 42 kick-ins in 2025, but 61 in 2024 where he averaged 74, and 81 kick-ins in 2023 where he averaged 82. So if he can get some more kick-ins, it almost works out to him being every kick-in he gets is what he averages. So if he can get up to that 80, 90 mark, an average 80 or 90, I definitely think that there could be some value there in the defense line. And Ned Moyle as well. I spoke about the rucks before, so he averaged 51.7, a price at 61 because he didn't play much. He's 643k. I need to see more as just a straight ruck. Maybe he comes in to help Wits. Over the last 2 years, when playing over 80% TOG, he's averaged 91.5. Although that's only from 4 games, that's good. So we know he can score. If he does get consistent game time, he's a great pick, but I'm not confident of using one of the 2 ruck spots for him. If he had forward status, I would absolutely be launching straight into him, but I'm just not keen on him being an R2. And then we've obviously got the 2 rookies there. Zeke Hewland, 346k. He's just a lock. He's a gun. Should slot in on the wing. And then Dylan Patterson, who is also another high pick. I think pick 8 or 9 or whatever I said before. He's 334k. So just a watch. I don't think he's as lockable as Hewland, but he'll play at some point. He'll play halfback if he does play. But yeah, that's the Suns. Any thoughts on any of those players?
I like it. No, well, I haven't done too much research into the Suns. That was your team, but I like it. And you've listed some rookies for me to have a look at in the off season, in the preseason games, and I like it. I reckon Christian Petrarca is in, maybe to watch. Matt Rao, Noah Anderson, I'll definitely be targeting later on the season.
Yeah, definitely.
So, good job.
Well,
yeah.
Off to you with Geelong.
All right, off to the Geelong. Well, this one might recognise you. We for those who can't see, if you're listening on Spotify, I'm just chucked on a Geelong cap. When Mason and I first met, we didn't know each other too well, and he comes up to me and he goes, "Oh, you like footy, right? Oh, I've got 2 tickets to the Crows game, Crows versus Geelong. Do you want to come?" Him as a Carlton fan, me as a Port Adelaide West Coast fan. I was like, "Yeah, sure, love to come." So naturally, as a Port Adelaide fan, I went out and bought a Geelong t-shirt and a Geelong cap. So here we are. That's
not the end of the story though, because we go to sit in. I won tickets through work. We're sitting in the Crows members section. I'm pretty sure I think I've told this story before on the pod, and
I think you might have told this story.
It's the first ball up. We're talking fantasy, blah blah blah, before the game. I'm thinking, this guy loves football. And bear in mind, I think we'd known each other for maybe 2 or 3 months at uni, and. First ball up, the ball goes up. Crows player gets the ball and is tackled instantly by a Geelong player. And Casey in the Crows members section, and if you know Crows fans, stands up and goes, "Holding the ball, hold it. And everyone looked at us, and I don't think I was embarrassed. I thought it was funny, but I was just a bit like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yep. Well, that's passion. And something I'm also passionate about is not picking bye players. So this is going to be a very quick recap.
Yeah.
Geelong, Geelong last year, they were pretty good. I think they were like a second or something for points scored. Bailey Smith averaged 116, Max Holmes 100, and Brian Myers 93 were their top three players. Their ins and outs this year, they got in Harley Baker from the draft. That's another number 24 draft pick. I swear I've seen that already. Anyway, Nick Driscoll, a couple other players who are unnecessary.
There he
and
is.
James Warple as
The
a
Driscoll
free
fraud.
from a... yes, Nick Driscoll. From the Hawks. James Warple, not Driscoll. So yeah, James Warple, big name. He's more impact over fantasy, so I won't speak much on him. But no, looking at the CBAs for the Cats, it was actually Tom Atkins that averaged the most. He had 71% time in the centre bounce appearances. Next followed by the ruck, and then Bailey Smith with 70, Max Holmes with 66, and O'Shane Mullen came in. I think he did a bit of tagging from recollection. He was in there as well. But it's really just Holmes and Smith, as I think Atkins is probably getting a bit older, might not even be in the side anymore. Well, that could just be talk. Who knows? But I think I'm tripping. But I swear I heard something along the line. He's getting old. Anyway, moving on to the kick-ins, and this is what I'm interested in. Number one for kick-ins was Lawson Humphreys over Tom Stewart, who had the second most. And then Guthrie and Holmes had a few as well. So Holmes racking up down there. But it was Lawson Humphreys that had the most. And I was hot on him last year. I was hot when you called him Lockie, not Lawson as well. But no, I like him. Weird memory. Anyway, I do like Lawson Humphreys. But for the Cats, go straight from the top like I did with the Dockers. Bailey Smith is... I think he's just priced himself. He's played himself out of the game. He's priced $1,220,000. He is the most expensive player in the game, I think, and which you can't pick him straight away, especially with that buy. You just can't. Averaged 116, and that's what he's priced at. Look, can he do that again? Probably. Can we pay that much for him to do that? Probably not. It's not the way we play the game until later on in the year when we can upgrade from blokes who have already made us the cash we need to make that. So Bailey Smith, I'm just putting an X through his name. It's a hell no for the price only. Do I think he's going to average over 110? Yes. Am I saying he's a bad fantasy player? No. I'm saying he's too expensive. Max Holmes, on the other hand, he's just over $1,059,000, priced at 101. I think he can go above that. I reckon he can go from 105, especially if he drifts back in the defence a little bit more, grabbing a few more of those kick-ins. I can see him doing that, but once again, got that early buy. And the problem with the Cats is they've got the buy, but then their fixtures, from recollection, they play the Hawks and someone else who's hard. Who they go? They go Hawks straight after their bye, and then the Bulldogs, and then I'm actually just straight tripping.
They've got Crows,
Why is
Hawks,
this not written down?
West Coast Bulldogs, Port is their next 5 after their bye.
Yeah, why do I have this in such a weird... Anyway, we're not targeting until round 5 when they play the Eagles.
Yeah.
And the first 4 rounds, they've got the bye early, and then they just have a hard matchup. So we're just not picking any of them, and it's just hard to see us going to them. The forward line is where we look, where we're looking this year for players, because there's not too much, and the Cats have 2 decently good fantasy players up there. Brian Myers, who a lot of us jumped on in the second half of last year, averaged 93 for the year, and is priced at 93 at 984k. Great player. I can't see him going much above that at all. I reckon he'll be around there, your 90 to 95 bloke. I don't think he's going to average more than that, but excellent player, and they want the ball in his hands. I think he's led the league in goal assists for a couple of years in a row, so the Cats clearly look for him, especially when they're going inside 50. And the other bloke is Sean Manor, who flew under our radar for a lot of last year, right up until the last few rounds when we all were like, oh, hang on, who's this, averaging 116 over the last 10 games. That's a random stat, by the way. Don't quote me on it. But no, he was.
I was gonna say
that's the impact that he had visually. That's the that's the visual impact he had. It was like,
visual
wait, who's this bloke?
Yeah.
The eye test, if you will, he's certainly passed that. So he averaged 88, and he's priced there too at 924. So that's a little bit under what I reckon he can do. He had a really strong last year. I think, what was it? He averaged 101 over his last 6, and then 97 over his last 10. So that's 10 points higher than what he's priced at. So I reckon he definitely scores higher than what he's priced at, and we can certainly look to target him in a pretty abysmal forward line. But once again, after the bye and after those hard rounds from the start. Anything on those four guys?
Not particularly. I mean, Mana is a interesting one because he has ceiling scores: 144 last year against the Saints, 120 against Sydney, and 118 against Carlton. But the rest of it, I mean, he can kind of drop a dud. He's got a 49 in there, 57. But most of it kind of sits around that 70 to 80 to 90-ish mark. Like kind of 70s, mid-70s, I guess, is his area with a couple of ceiling scores. So, I mean, I get that's kind of the forward line. That's what most of the forwards who actually play forward do. But yeah, I think he could be a good pick. I'm just not super keen on him at that price. I think you're probably paying a bit too much for him. So, I mean, maybe if his price goes down, I mean, we spoke about how Gold Coast have a good run before their bye. Geelong actually have a hard run before their bye, so maybe he goes down a little bit, and we see him a bit cheaper, I guess.
Yep, solid. I didn't have too much else for the Cats. Like, I look at their value players, and there's not really anyone that I could see in the mid prices, like at all. A lot of people had Jack Martin last year, like popped his head in. A couple of people were looking at what's his name? The guy with the guy with the blonde hair and the headband, but that's 18 of their 22 players.
That's all of them.
No, looking down straight to their value in their rookie that they picked up. They picked up a few rookies, but the only one worth mentioning is a bloke named Harley Barker. He was picked 24 from South Australia as well, Sturt boy, and he had an ACL injury, so there's no stats on him from last year, but I reckon if there's anybody breaking into the Cats side, which I doubt there will be, he'd be the one to do it. But once again, I don't think that he's going to make it. That's a pretty solid team, the Cats. They've been amazing for the last 20 years. It's pretty hard to break into that team, especially as a rookie. So there's not really much we're looking at. It's really just those 4 top guys that we might target off their bye. That's kind of all I had for the Cats. I mean, do you have any Cats, or are you thinking about getting any of them in your side?
Not particularly. I haven't done a whole lot of research on them, but just looking through their list, there's not really anyone that I'm interested in, I guess. Tom Stewart maybe presents a bit of value, I guess. James Warple's not interesting. I mean, what's going to happen with their ruck situation? Are we going to finally have a set ruck in someone like DeConning? Reece Stanley's getting old, so maybe there's a bit of something to do there. Conway as well. Hopefully he's uninjured. I actually don't know whether he's injured at the moment or not, but maybe that's the only thing we could keep a watch on. But apart from that, it's pretty slim pickings. And with that round 2 bye, I'm just not keen on anyone from Geelong.
Yeah. That's it.
That's about it. Well, there you go. There's our 4 clubs done. Got through it in a bit of a better time than last time, and we'll come back to you.
Yeah.
Who are the next clubs up? GWS.
Monday we got the
Hawthorn.
Melbourne, Hawthorn, and I think it's North Melbourne. Melbourne and North Melbourne, I reckon the other 2. I'm pretty sure.
GWS
check us out
for them,
on YouTube.
Yeah, so check us out on YouTube.
Yeah, GWS, Hawthorn, North Melbourne, and Melbourne. You can see our brains clicking in real time. It's quite funny. we've even, I know we've got ourselves here. Last time we didn't have ourselves, but now I can see Mason. So it feels like we're actually talking to someone until we go back to uni and we're doing them in person again. But
that'll be good. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Giants, Hawthorn, Melbourne.
Chuck us up on your
North.
big screen.
That's who we're doing next time.
It's exciting stuff. Well, until then, I hope listening to our previous podcast, you were on the mark with your making your fantasy teams. You were on your mark
and
with
not
those ones.
off the mark. And we'll be back with Giants, Hawks, Melbourne, and North Melbourne early next week, probably around Monday or Tuesday. That'll come out. So yeah, see ya.